expected to make it. So
Logical Raptors fanatic.
shoot trying to miss. Like every shot
Logical Raptors fanatic.
try to make it. So I was gonna act surprised.
A fun guy. Obviously,
Logical Raptors fanatic.
love the game of basketball. I mean, it's just more questions you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
No
Project Truth.
has contacted me, and I see all the stuff that, like, you guys see. I dream like they dream. Yeah. Yeah, I want,
Logical Raptors fanatic.
you know. Yeah, so they keep dreaming. I dream too.
Salute, real ones. Project Truth always. Mike G back here with Logical Raptors fanatic. And we have an interesting one today with the trade deadline looming. We have an interesting trade that kind of sparked something a lot bigger in the end, as you could see from the thumbnail, from going from a failed first overall pick into the man, well, part of the shot, the man, Kawhi, the title man, you know what I mean? The board man gets paid. So let's go through this aspect of the trade tree into Kawhi. Obviously, our own assets went into that. I'm not going to touch on the biggest piece in that trade, obviously DeMar. That would take another extra hour, but I'm priming up for that, right? By doing this part first, and we can talk on everything involved in this trade in a sense, and not just look at that one piece, Jakob Poeltl, but look at the other draft picks and some of Masai's history with drafting and talk about some of the things involved with that, the Raptors drafting, and we'll dive deeper, but it's going to be a good one, so enjoy. Okay, so obviously here we have Andrea Bargnani, drafted '06, first overall, right? Our only first overall pick. And interesting enough, we'll touch on the drafting part, I guess, right here. We actually did fairly well drafting early without with the restrictions of not being able to get the first overall pick. Okay, so the expansion rules when the Grizzlies and the Raptors came in were they couldn't get from 1 to 5 in 95, the year that they started, but then they couldn't have the first overall pick for 96, 97, and 98 also. So we actually hit fire with some of our picks, right? We got Mighty Mouse the first year, right? Then we got hit with the no first overall thing, and we got bumped to Camby. Camby didn't kind of work out. But then the next year, so 97, we drafted McGrady, right? And then 98, we drafted Vince. And then we were solid as an organization. I think where the Grizzlies kind of fell was because they had a chance. If the rule wasn't in place, they could have had KG and Allen Iverson on the Grizzlies, but instead they got Bibby and Steve Franchise. They got him instead. So obviously those guys weren't the caliber of guys that we got, but we drafted, like, Vince was a 5th pick, Grady was lower. All our kind of main franchise guys have been lower than like the 1st or 2nd or 3rd pick, right? it's like weird how we've missed on these two picks. Well, Camby had a great long career. Bargnani, we'll go into it now, I guess, because I did touch on our drafting situation before and our kind of so obviously '03 Bosch came, right? So 98 Vince came, so then '03 Bosch came, and then '06 we drafted Bargnani, looking for him to be like the next Dirk. And some of his shooting numbers fare out. What it like from three, he had a decent three ball, great volume, right? This was ahead of its time more, but as a power forward and center, he wasn't physical enough. He didn't want to get into the paint and be physical, and he was more of like a finesse player. He would have done well with now rules where you can't like touch the shooter at all and stuff. Before then, when he was coming up in these years, obviously the rules were different before Steph Curry came, right? And kind of changed the view of what the NBA wanted regarding offense and how the change from post to shooting was made with most teams as they try to copy the champion, right? So he was early. He was early. He's more of a tweener. I think he could have worked as as a small forward now more than back then. I heard a comment like someone was saying that they thought Bargnani and Bosch was like the future kind of combo of like versatility because Bosch could play power forward and center, right? He could do both, and then we could put maybe like Andrea Bargnani small forward or power forward depending on different things, right? Like because his statistics were fine, it's just the physicality. He didn't like going up against NBA power forwards, and that was the only place he was being played. But he did have shooting, so that can add to pulling him away from the basket. But there's a lot of things, obviously, that were an issue with Bargnani. I think just everything about the NBA just wasn't him in a sense. And like, if you were to look at his statistics, like if we were to go through them year by year, they look kind of decent, but the production doesn't match. Like he's too easy to stop at certain times and stuff. And you could see through the years, like he was here through the Bosch playoff run, right? One of them, and or yeah, both, yeah. And then like he was in that rebuilding mode where Calderon was with the team during this length. So it was like Calderon and Bargnani were working what we were trying to like do at the moment before Masai came, and then obviously this is the point where Masai got here, and obviously Bargnani was a big issue at that time. Ultimately, with Masai's international scouting background, I think he probably scouted the hell out of Andrea Bargnani and knew that he was no Dirk. He was never going to be Dirk. He just wasn't, he didn't have the mindset for Dirk, and he didn't work hard enough, maybe. Because Dirk worked hard, man. That guy was in the gym like every day for like 20 years, like just going at it, just working on his game, like working different elements, improving, doing all that kind of stuff that we ask of our guys. But obviously, we have a faster track because the organization and the players in tandem with that pure kind of energy we always talk about can really make bigger strides than a guy kind of on his own doing his own thing kind of. So it's really interesting how ultimately Masai knew that this wasn't the guy we were going to build around. And the team that he came into was really interesting. Like we just got Lowry, Calderon was on the team, young DeRozan played 4 seasons with Bargnani, right? And like DeRozan played a year with Bosch, the 09-010 season, right? So like he had an interesting collective of guys. DeRozan a higher pick, and then he had Valanciunas from the year before, rookie. He kind of made the mistake with that drinking thing and driving, but he apologized and completely changed his ways. And we never heard a peep from anything of JV's outside kind of activities and stuff, right? I think that's where sometimes the ownership knows, like, okay, yeah, Masai knew he made a mistake, but this is a good guy. I've scouted him. I know what he's about. I've talked to his coaches. I know we could still have him here, and he's gonna learn from it and not make that same mistake. And I think that's key because he was obviously a big part of us for a lot of years. And Masai was sussing out who needed to go, but immediately he knew Bargnani needed to go, right? And then obviously we Rudy Gay went really quick, and then Lowry was on the table too at one point, right? So he was trying to really change the culture. The leaders from before weren't gonna work. He wanted to get kind of like new guys in there. But then obviously Lowry changed his ways and history is history, right? So interesting enough, this trade with New York was the reason why we kept Lowry in a sense. It was weird enough how this all works out. It's so magical in a sense. But let's get on to like what we got for Bargnani because I don't want to spend too much time on him. He's not really a big part in this whole story. I like to stick on the Masai era because I like eras within teams, right? I like when they have a good structure from the top down, they have the right guy in place, the right plan, and they're doing the right things. I like to follow teams that do that kind of stuff. It's not just about winning. I'm not like a bandwagon fan like that. I observe and like to watch teams, and when a Toronto team is definitely doing that, I'm on it hard. But basketball's always been a love, and I think Bargnani just, I think it hurt the city a bit, just the expectations of a first overall pick and what happened, and it really hurt our like ego as a fan base, thinking that we could never win a championship because superstars won't come here and we can't make them or can't draft them, right? So Masai came in seeing the ground a completely different way, seeing a place where he had support of the government, the support of a financially very like committed to the progress of the team because the organizations that own it, Bell and Rogers, make money when the team's doing well and they're getting clicks and people are checking their clips and all the kind of stuff they provide gets juiced up when the team does good. So they have an added investment into the team. So the more dollars they invest into development, they know they'll have great guys to cover later, right? So it's about investment and return, and he understood that that relationship of ownership means that they have a lot more money to spend in a sense of what they're making back on the other end, where most owners just make money off TV rights and not the extra stuff. And then that's why Dolan is the richest and kind of has the richest and best situation because he owns all the rights and has it on like a special network where he has all the teams under one sports flag, MSG, right? And that's his company, and he also owns the team, right? So it's like he's making money. But Masai saw that and saw passionate fans that were willing to support guys that just played hard the right way. He saw this fertile ground where others would see, like, oh, it's Canada, no one wants to go there. He saw, okay, yes, there's going to be that kind of subgroup of people that don't want to come to Canada because it's cold or it's not America or whatever. But with the international expansion of talent and what's coming up in the next couple of years, establishing Toronto as an international city can really make the difference in acquiring different types of talents. And if the best talents are coming out of Europe or international, theming the city and really like embracing that international feel is the way to go, I think, with attracting guys from other countries and stuff. Because hey, if you want to be stubborn and want to play, well, it's not even stubbornness. It's about like growing up in America, playing in a certain place, wanting to be close to family and the fans that supported you when you were like nobody, like a younging, right? And Kawhi wanted to do that, kind of go back to that kind of place where his family was and the people that supported him when he wasn't like the finals MVP and everyone's on his stuff now because he's doing great, right? He wanted to go back to his core people, which is fine. But ultimately, we got a chip out of all of this. So let's go back into it a bit more. So Andrea Bargnani for a 2016 first, which we'll go into it because it had stipulations and stuff, a 2014 second, a 2017 second, and we got 3 players, which one played a bit, pretty much. Steve Novak played a bit. We talked, we saw him a bit, right? He was still on the roster. Quentin Richardson got waived, right? He was done, gone, easy. Camby was at the end of his career, even though he was originally a Toronto pick, right? He was at the end of his career, right? We're talking about 14, right? So take that in. 18 years later, right? Camby comes back to the Raptors. And maybe that's a signal of like closing the book on those end chapters of the mistakes of previous. And that was July 30th, 2013. So the summer of 13. So after this season ended, pretty much, right? So I I think Bargnani's. There's been enough said about him. I think everyone understands that. I don't want to go too hard into him because he doesn't apply too much to now. But this was an interesting trade, and obviously we're gonna go through the picks now and see what happened to the picks. We'll go the second rounds first, and then obviously the first round, and then poeltl, and then we'll finish off with him, right? So I think ultimately you have to look at picks in years too, obviously, because I think bringing in, like, if you have a year with 5 picks, when all their contracts are up, you're going to have to re-sign them. Imagine re-signing 5 different guys at the same time. It's not easy, right? So you have to kind of have you have about like what, 2 to 3 slots you can push guys into and see if they become something, right? So this was the first Masai's first draft, like in control, right? So it's rough. He doesn't know exactly where he's going with things. We obviously tried to move up to get Giannis, I believe, right? If this is the same draft, right? So, and then we'll look more at the second round picks we had here, right? So we actually had a Kings second round pick from trading James Johnson in 2012. So I'm guessing the Kings didn't know that trading trading this pick would become a high pick, right? And we've talked about that in previous second round things. And I think just like we'll glance over this, DeAndre Daniels didn't really amount to much, right? So our second round pick was actually traded in 2003 before Masai came. So this wasn't our guy. Lamar Patterson was drafted by the Bucks, but this is what happened to our pick. It was traded to the Suns for Sebastian Telfair. And yeah, I'm not gonna go over it too much. It was before Masai, right? We can see here. And then this is the pick we got from the Bargnani trade, which was actually a Thunder pick. And this was a year that they finished quite high in the standings, right? So, traded Ronnie Brewer to the Thunder for the second round pick and cash. On the trade, it looks like trade deadline of 2013, right? And then they traded that pick in the Bargnani trade, right? And then it touches on the Jakob Poeltl part here, but we'll go into it later on, so we don't have to look too hard at it. And Xavier Thamis was like these guys eventually went to the G League. I think Andre Daniels the next year, because we didn't have the G League this year. We had it the next year. Bruno's second year on the team. And this is the year that we got swept by the Wizards. So it was obviously a tough choosing this year, but we selected some better ones next year anyways, right? So we'll continue on with the next second round pick. So the second for this year was a really interesting year. Like I said, we had some interesting trades happen for the picks within this year. We didn't pick any of our original guys at our spots. So we'll take a look at what happened here, kind of. So the Clippers, and this was a big one, a biggie, obviously, OG and annunoby, right? The Clippers traded this pick to the Bucks in like a 3-team deal, it looks like. Oh no, just one big trade, all right. And then the Bucks traded this pick and basically the rights to Norman Powell in 2015, right? So we picked Powell with their second round Bucks pick. And we got, yeah, this is the top protected top 14 in 2007 to 9, else 2020 second round, 2021 second round pick. So it converts into 2 seconds if the pick doesn't hit under top 14 within these 2 years. So it did. It hit 23 and we picked OG Annunoby. But we got this pick and we had both picks for a while. And we used our pick, which was a lower pick, to trade for Surge. And some other Raptors stuff, and we'll go through it in the Surge Raptors trade tree or whatever. But they picked someone that you don't even know who he is. Basically, the Magic wasted that pick. We nailed our pick, the Magic wasted our pick. And this is what it's about in a sense of, yeah, you can trade away picks, but it's also about the people you pick. It's not just about, oh, you're giving away this and like all that. You have to understand everything, right? So, and then the 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 Knicks pick that we got was actually really high because the Knicks stank, but we traded it to the Jazz for Diana Garrett to the Raptors for Steve Novak in a second round. And the person that was chosen here was Joanna Bolton. So this trade was done during the season, about, well, no, August, right? So pretty much a year to the day of the Bargnani trade, he trades away this pick with Steve Novak. So I think it was more like a contract dump and an interesting prospect. Whatever, the Jazz traded it to the Sixers in a crazy trade here. It doesn't matter. Joanna Bolt, you don't even know who that is. And then our actual second round pick got traded to the Suns. So we got PJ Tucker, and we were looking to dump Jared Sullinger's contract, and we gave them this second round pick and a 2018 second round pick, which was 59, which was so that was the year that we finished first in the East. So yeah, that second pick wasn't much, and we got to dump Jared Sullinger for PJ Tucker. Solid trade. Alex Peters, you don't even know who he is. So we'll go on to now our 2016 draft. Well, we know who was in the 2016 draft, but I'm going to really focus in on what happened with that pick and why it was poeltl and who the pick came from and what happened with it. But first, I want to correct something. This is not August; it's July. Sorry, I had 9 on the brain because we drafted Jakob Poeltl 9. So enough with the extra. Let's get to the man of the hour, Jakob Poeltl. So interesting enough, in 2011, there was the trade that Masai did. This is actually 2 trades that Masai did. Masai was working with the Nuggets, right? And he had to deal away Carmelo Anthony. And part of the trade was a Nuggets option to swap the 2016 first round picks with the Knicks. And they did. They swapped into that pick and picked Jamal Murray. But it's interesting how it's funny how like 2 years later he's doing it for the Raptors in a sort of similar kind of big-esque trade. Not as big as Carmelo Anthony, right? But Andrea Bargnani, okay, a bigger name, right? The Nuggets, and let's see what he got for like Anthony, and let's go through this trade a little bit. This one's an interesting one. This is a Masai trade, so it goes to us in a sense, and let's understand what he did with Melo. So Melo, older Chauncey Billups, Anthony Carter, Ronaldo Balkman, Sheldon Williams, a 2015 second round, which was Rashad Holmes. Might have wanted that. That was a good pick, right? Nuggets option to swap the 2016 first round pick in a 3-team trade with the and the Timber. Okay, so it was a 3-team trade, right? With the Knicks, and the Timberwolves were also in the Melo deal with Wilson Chandler, right? Raymond Felton, Danilo Gallinari is what came, or Costa Kumfa, Timothy Mozgov, and a second round pick from the Knicks. And the first round 4th pick from the Knicks, Dario Saric, came from the Knicks. So the Nuggets got quite a bit, right? And the Wolves got quite a bit as well, because I think they helped bolster the package, right? So, and then obviously the Nuggets got the option to swap, and they swapped into the Knicks pick because they were 9th, and then that's how we got the 9th pick. So if the Nuggets had the 7th pick and the Knicks had like the 8th pick, we would have got the 8th pick. Whichever one was lower, and Nuggets were in the controlling who was getting which pick, and we were in the spot of where the Knicks were supposed to get their pick because they traded it for Bargnani. So we got Jakob Poeltl 9th in the 2016 draft, which was Masai's 3rd. And this was a legendary draft. And I think this encompasses what happened with the team, kind of like what he was drafting for. Because we came out of that year with a center, a defensive center, right? For the future. We'll talk about that. We came out with Pascal Siakam with our own pick because this was technically the Knicks pick that got swapped out by the Nuggets. So our pick was lower, and obviously we got Siakam. But then also we got Fred VanVleet undrafted. So we got 3 future players out of the 2016 draft. Then we went into 2017 and got another kind of all-timer kind of guy that can grow with the team in OG Annunoby. Younger, he was more of a lottery pick till he got hurt just before the draft, and people were questioning what his movement would be after the injury. But Masai kind of had assurance from probably the medical team and whatnot, and examining him, and him really wanted to come to the Raptors really made for a great partnership, and we've seen what has happened with that, right? So you could see he's kind of built a team up within a couple of years by trading a couple pieces. We traded what? Bargnani. We traded also Greivis Vasquez. We used our own development system and with undrafted Van Vliet, and we used our own pick in our draft system with Siakam, and then got OG, right? So like the next year with the Greivis Vasquez. So we also got Norman Powell though also too, which was supposed to be like the 5-man unit, right, going forward. But obviously we see now without poeltl, we're missing a center, and now without Powell, but Powell's been replaced by Trent, and that's sort of working out a little bit better. We can see how the team's moving forward, and now we have to brew Scotty up and see where he's gonna position out and where he's gonna play most of his minutes. We're still working on that, right? We don't want to put the heavy load on him, but we do need a kind of a bigger center. I think like a 7-footer to kind of that was supposed to be Jakob Poeltl in the plans, and we just haven't found the right one over the years. I think teams thinking that we need a center bad makes them upprice us on centers that we know aren't worth it. So we're not going to waste our money and get someone just to get someone. I think it's really been interesting, like the past couple of years, our forwards have had a lot of experience defending centers and being in the center spot. It adds to the versatility. So having that vacuum is not necessarily such a downside at the moment. We have guys like Scotty, OG, Siakam, Precious, all learning the center position, and then when now we get a center that has ability to shoot or space the floor or whatever, we might go hard defensive center like Gasol was, because that's what happened. We traded away Jakob Poeltl. We tried kind of Serge Ibaka. He wasn't fast enough or good enough, like strength-wise, to defend a lot of the heavy centers. And JV wasn't much of a defender. So Jakob Poeltl, we pushed the fast forward button in a sense and got the aged Jakob, which is Gasol. But Gasol has a couple more tricks to his bag, and we talked about it in our offensive video. But I think we have to understand the makeup of the team also at times and what the plan is, because I think ultimately we don't want to rush out and fill a spot just to fill a spot. It has to make sense. We're not going to upset the apple cart just to get one more apple in the cart, right? It's just dynamics, and obviously Masai's in tune with the group, and he's talked previously about not wanting to upset the chemistry with our group and knowing the right guys to bring in and which ones are not are going to make problems with the other guys on our team. And currently we have a great group that really likes each other. All guys like each other in a sense. And so it's hard to really gauge with people that expect so much and then limiting everything in a sense, but there's definitely an abundance of what we can offer, and more talented players isn't a problem in a sense, other than the fact of paying a lot of them in a sense. But our development program always continues to pump out new guys, and we'll see who can come up. We're looking at Koloko was playing some G League games, like I said earlier in the season, like I said in a couple of my videos. And when Precious got hurt, that was a signal that he was going to get that early burn like Siakam did. And we're going to probably follow like a track similar to Siakam, but I don't think that the G League team this year is good enough for a championship run. So we'll see. We'll see how that ends up with Koloko. But it's good for him to get solid playing minutes. Even though it's kind of a mess down there, it tunes him up to be fast and reactive to different things, and kind of breaks him out of the robot mold that we want our guys to get out of in a sense. It's really interesting. Maybe I'll talk on it in a future video, but let's get to the actual guy that was picked with the 9th pick, Jakob. So now we got Jakob right here. Yep, he got to be on the stage with Adam Silver, right? And this is his mold code. Well, we talked about his draft position, but mold code, we're looking at for him to be. So either the starting center or the secondary, just basic. So when we talked in our center video, which was like Boucher to Christian Koloko, right? We were talking about the three center type molds, where the first one is the versatility one, where it's like a combination of Serge and Ibaka, or Serge and Gasol, sorry. And Gasol is like the way he defends is the second type, and then the third type is kind of Ibaka. So the mix of the two is number one. And we're trying to obviously develop a guy that can pass and shoot still and be connective with the defense, rotating, being switchable, but also being able to man the heavy guys and having a more broader diameter with that. And then maybe have like specialists, which I think like Precious can definitely roll into the third center type, right? Where he's like the Ibaka guy playing center like that, but then he can also roll into that small forward role where we talk about OG is kind of there. So it's really interesting, Precious. But this second mold type, I think he's more second than first, in my opinion. So but beta 2.0, which interesting enough, the guy that we had here before was Jonas Valanciunas, our first center project, and trying to figure out how to build a real good center that's solid for years, right? And we decided to go more defensively at the start of this one because I think Jonas was very offensively. He was great in the post with the short shots, and he still is, right? Rebounds and does that stuff, but defending was an issue, right? So I think starting off with the defender and working him over years is the way to go. Getting him tons of minutes each year in a sense of how long it really takes to cook these kind of guys, like the IQ centers that take away percentages. That's what he's good at, like kind of taking away the best percentage shots and guarding, kind of walling things off, like similar to Gasol. And now that we have Gasol tape, getting him back would be fantastic because in a sense we have a lot of mold stuff that we did studying Gasol for those years, like I've said before, where we do the motion camera and we could show him all about like Gasol's shooting stroke and his passing and build up Jakob really into like a mini Gasol in a sense if we were to get him back. And I think that's why I wanted to kind of do this. The trade deadline I know is interesting, and there's a lot of talk about getting Jakob back. And I think there are some flaws, and we'll go into it now with his stats. So the first year he was with us, he actually, I think, played more with the upper club than Siakam because of positional need, and Dwayne Casey liked the defensive center option with the mix with Valanciunas, right? So played center, obviously, age 21 when we got him, so nice, young, right? So we have a bunch of years to develop him, right? In a sense of when we got him. So 54 games played, 4 games started. So JV started most of the games, right? Yeah, we knew that, right? So 11 minutes. We'll look at the stats, but keep in mind minute skewing and stats and rookie year, right? So totals, he only got 2 shots total, higher than 50%. Okay, so no 3 balls whatsoever. Not allowed to take a single 3, right? That's because the scheme changed the next year, but he was still there. But let's continue on. So his 2-pointers were okay. His free throws were looking like a tragic Thaddeus in a sense with the free throws here, but 1.1, okay, not much, right? But over 50%. I was watching something earlier. They're showing 2 guys under 50 or under the, like, you know what I mean, 50%. And I was like, wow, how can you have playoff rotation guys doing that? And it was actually the Nets. It was Claxton and Ben Simmons's free throw rates are under even 500 at the moment. And they're talking about that being problematic in the playoffs, which I would agree. We'll see what happens with the Nets. Um, Offensive, defensive rebounding. Yeah, okay. He hasn't really learned how to push his body around. He's probably a younger, like, look at him. He still looks so young there, right? So, okay. Okay, he's not ready for the weight of that position, and it's understandable. Assists non-existent, okay. Steals, non-existent blocks. Wow, not even like see, he had a problem probably positioning and stuff, right? So turnovers 0.5, fouls 2-1, 3-1 for points. So looks like a rookie raw center. More defensive, so like obviously his what he's doing isn't showing complete through here. He's not he's probably being called on fouls more than blocking and stealing the ball. So his block and steal numbers are going to be low till he gets respected, like Koloko, right? So it's gonna be interesting his first year, but then the second year, well, actually we go playoffs. He played a little bit of playoffs, 4 minutes. Okay, we'll go through it quick. Field goals, nothing much, nothing much. Offensive ribbing, defensive ribbing, total rib, okay. For 4 minutes, wow, okay. A tick of a block steal and a foul, so he's getting foul, yeah. This was a sweep year. And this was the other sweep year with Braun. They were two sweep years. So we'll continue on. 2017, 2018. And this was the year that was the bench mob. So he was 22 years old, the center on the bench mob, played all 82 games. And that's really good for a center, right? Played decent minutes, 18.6. Field goal attempts, we gave him more shots. He nailed more shots. He's looking like he's developing through. So we can see kind of like what we're looking right right now is what the Spurs were looking at, but then they also have a lot of tape of the defense and stuff and know the defense, and these are the statistics they were kind of eyeing. So we'll continue going through it, right? So this is interesting. So 0-0-0-0, but has a 50% three-pointer, right? So this is basically because he played 82 games, and the fraction of the one shot or two shots. So two shots, he made one, missed one probably, or whatever the combination is. But it's so minute in how much minutes he was on the court that it appears like the attempts are like 1-0-1-0-1 or some. I don't know how. Like that's how it works out. It's crazy. Like it's just because they can't decimal it back anymore because that's where the figure would be. So 2 pointers per game, right? See, it's per game. These averages are per game, so that's what's happening, right? So per game, you would get like basically no threes and had like one or two threes on the season, right? So now we're looking at his twos, which are very improved from the year before, increased in volume, 3 more shots. Looks like he's starting to find his position in post, right? Looking decent. Free throw, making a gain there. Still volume, still similar, but maybe just starting to feel it a bit more, right? Rebounds, offensive and defensive rebounds up. More minutes, so skewing up. It looks fairly solid. He's able to hold his own on offense and hold his own on defense. And total rebounds should definitely peak more when he's in a full size man body, right? So assists up a little bit more, so he's showing a bit of IQ. We'll take a look at the rest of the stats here, though. Steals 1.5 and 1.2 blocks. So, okay, he's starting to convert some of those plays. Turnovers 1.0 and 2.6. So they're trying to push the offense, and sometimes it's not working out, which pushes into a turnover. And sometimes on defense, yeah, he can get out of position and need to foul. Being the last line of defense in a scheme, you kind of have to kind of do that. And that's why centers pile up fouls, and we need kind of bodies that can kind of soak up fouls like rookies and whatnot, guys. So it's a combination of guys in their prime and then younger guys, and we have the center position is always evolving in a sense, and we need to kind of be fluid with that. And obviously, I don't know what the logistics were. So 6.9 points. We'll finish this off and then I'll talk about the trade and stuff, right? So okay. So this was the second year where he played more minutes, okay. Got more attempts, looked decent for playoff ball. Didn't hit his three. See, with a smaller game sample, you could see when he takes a three. And then obviously his 2 pointers are improved. He's starting to grow into his body a bit more. Free throws, okay. Looks like he's improving. That would signal to me, okay, this guy is working on things, right? Offensive and defensive rebounding up, obviously. More minutes. So assists up, steals, blocks up. Yeah, turnovers 09. So okay. And then a little bit more fouling, less points. Okay. So now we get to this part where it's interesting what happened. I don't know what the assets were. The Spurs were asking for a ridiculous package at first, right? So at first they were really asking for like and basically they wanted like Jakob Poeltl, Siakam, Van Vliet, and a couple picks for just Kawhi Leonard and whatever big other piece they were going to throw into the mix. DeMar or Kyle Lowry was being jockeyed in that position, right? So I think ultimately the story of the trade from outsiders and what they observed and the insiders that know what kind of things were happening at that time, they said Masai waited the market out. And what that signals to me is that Masai made an offer, basically probably like similar to this, probably like DeMar or Kyle plus Jakob or Siakam, and then the one first, right? Then he just stood on it. Okay, yeah. Hey, let me know how the market turns out, right? And so Masai waited with his offer and held his offer, right? He didn't up it because he heard rumors that the Lakers were interested, or he said he was going to the Lakers, or any of this extra crap didn't really kind of hit him. He knew value and what the Spurs were looking for, and they would come back to the table if someone else wasn't able to get fleeced, in a sense. And I think just like they obviously went to the Lakers, tried to negotiate with the Lakers, negotiate with the Clippers, negotiate with every other team under the sun. And obviously the jockeying of assets, the Lakers weren't willing to give up the right things that they felt were needed in the trade. So the Lakers said, nah, we're just good. Maybe we'll just go on with our other plans. And all those teams kind of said they would go on, I guess. And then the Spurs options kind of became limited to maybe the Raptors and another team. And then that's where they came back to the table. And I think this deal was hammered out. And we got Kawhi and Danny Green. And Danny Green was in part because of Bobby Webster thought his fit would be excellent and we like it would add to the versatility of the team, and it did provide a decent amount of return for what we got, right? Like honestly, this is what it's about, right? This is what it's about. Just because these two guys left the summer next didn't mean we wasted these assets, right? It didn't mean we wasted these assets. That's what you do. At one point, you have to look for the window that's most favorable and push in. And this was obviously a star swap in a sense because DeMar was second all team in 2017, 2018, averaging 28 points in the season, looking ridiculous and on top of his games. And Kawhi hadn't played that year basically at all, right? So it was an interesting trade. I think just people didn't know who Kawhi Leonard was and wasn't sure of his situation. So there was a little big amount of backlash because DeMar DeRozan always saluted the team, loved Toronto, wanted to be Toronto forever. It just he didn't work his game enough, or just it wasn't the timing just changed on the team because the window started to close and Masai had to make his move. Unfortunately, after the sweeps, the window was starting to close. They had like 3 years to get it done in a sense, and they didn't really get it done. So sometimes it rolls on. And DeMar wasn't really Masai's pick in a sense. So like maybe there was less attachment, but I don't think there was any bad blood in this trade. It was just basic business, and no one like if we traded DeMar DeRozan for nothing, then like the league and every player in the league would look at us bad. Like, look at how they dirtied this guy. He's so loyal to them, and they traded for nothing. But when you trade for the guy that is the MVP of the championship, your first and only championship at the moment, right? That changes kind of the way the trade's viewed. Like, okay, they did axe a guy that was loyal, but it was for a definite purpose and definitely got the result, right? So it's hard to say bye to DeRozan, and I think people have said they wanted him back, and I don't think that works. He doesn't work with the team we have now in a sense, and he's doing his thing on Chicago. I know Chicago's like in a bit of a mess, but hey, like that's just the way the league goes. We went younger. Lowry had to move on. Everyone had to kind of move on, and DeMar is part of that old regime pre-Siakam, like Van Vliet leadership, right? But Jakob, interesting enough, was part of the bench mob and still does functionally fit into the plans and could still definitely jump in and just be in there. But his ceiling, I don't know. That's the hard thing, right? Because he's been with the Spurs for so long, we don't know exactly how up to tune he is with different things and stuff. And he's been out of our system where he could have maybe grown a couple more things, like a better free throw, and maybe started working on that three ball, and you know what I mean. So it'll be interesting, like if Jakob comes back. It fits financially. Like he is looking for 20 million, and I think he's not going to really get crazy more better than he is. If we don't like, it depends. We have a lot of different things going on at this moment. Before maybe there was a lot more options, but when if he were to come back, it would be in a specific role based around Precious and probably Koloko, because I think they have definitely a lot more promise in a sense of years with us and being able to maximize that development track, like I was saying and have been saying on my channel forever. But we'll see. We'll see. This is kind of an interesting how Bargnani, we kind of parlayed Bargnani. So we got rid of a player that wasn't working. So we got rid of a lot of salary. We built up and eventually use this pick later. So we banked value. So we banked the Bargnani value on a pick that would provey in 3 years from the trade, right? Pretty much 4 years from the trade because it was 2013. Oh, yeah, no, 3 years, 3 years. Okay, yeah, 3 years. So yeah, so 3 years. So we can do this now and still have a guy that we have for like 2 years, and maybe he's the guy that's in a trade that helps Scotty and OG, or if OG's here, if Siakam, well, Siakam's gonna be here, if Fred VanVleet's here, whoever's here. Like, so it depends sometimes. Like, obviously, that was an easy choice with Bargnani. Like, definitely, Masai knew the value of the pick that he kind of set up in the other deal and kind of sniped that pick out of the kind of Carmelo deal he set up, knowing what things were on it and stuff. He's really good with understanding and like estimating teams' trends, and that's where he can gamble in a sense of getting certain picks and knowing that like the Bucks like trading for that Clippers pick from the Bucks was gonna be a decent outcome even with the protections on the pick itself from the Bucks, which were, remember, there was 2 years and then it would convey into 2 second rounds and it hit on the first year. So it wasn't like really anything in a sense. It was just smart business. Bucks thought they were doing a nothing trade, but it turned out to be a fantastic trade for us. And I think those are the moves that Masai likes to do, where he's more in a position of like, hey, you need this or you need something that I have, versus he needs what you have and you being in the power position with the center that we need. So it's really interesting how he plays different things out. Obviously, he does like to be in the position of power where he has the most negotiating power to get the best deal for the Raptors, which makes him one of the best, one of, but the best exec in the league, under my opinion, right? So housekeeping. See, first off, saluting the real ones, the likes, the comments, the support, the subs, everything that you guys do is really the fuel for what's going on here. And I love the representation we got over here. And obviously, salute Raptors Freak Nation. Obviously, every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, cutting up, talking about a lot of the Raptor news. You don't have to dive through the negativity. We have people that kind of are on top of different elements, so it's like you get all the positivity and all the news still, but definitely less of the nonsense, right? That Project Truth is kind of looking to to be a counterpoint to a lot of the fantasy and the 2K kind of trades that people want to do, right? Let's just look back at history and see, let's discuss a real trade that happened that Masai did, right? So, it is what it is. It's for some people and it's maybe not for some, but that's that's the truth of it, right? I just like to look at reality and what's true with the team and kind of just look at different aspects and try to grow my own basketball knowledge by deep diving with you guys. Like, I'm looking through the same material you're looking through in a sense, and we're kind of discovering things together. I like that kind of stuff, which happens on the Raptors Freak channel as well. So it's a great, both communities are great. Well, I don't know if I have enough people here to call it community, but definitely love the support. And we'll get on to the pitchers here now. So Jody Meeks lands his first coaching job with the Birmingham squad. And I saw this when they were facing us. One of the games Coloco was playing in the 905. They were facing Birmingham, and they were talking about Jody Meeks and his connection with Kentucky, obviously playing there, but he also did and was with the championship team and saw a great coaching staff that year and probably knows what coaching staff is the best and was probably an IQ guy on the team. These guys earned the chip as well because they help the guys prepare in practice. Them playing hard, like Rudy style, like the movie, playing hard really gets the other guys going, right? So they're, even though he didn't play as much, he was there. He saw the coaching, he saw the team, he was behind the closed doors, saw everything. It's about him understanding what he saw, right? And if he can parlay that into a coaching job and start really making his name for his coach, maybe we see him on the 905 because he was on the 905 in the Justin Champagny and Delano Banton year where they almost made a run to the chip. He was on that team. So he was playing 905 the year before this one, and then now has moved into the kind of assistant coach with the Birmingham squadron. And looks good on him. I'm glad to see one of our championship guys continuing in the league, making their name. Maybe he comes back to us at some point. We look to have him an assistant on the G League system, maybe develop him out. Who knows? But great, great developments from guys still that were there when we hit the mountaintop, and we're looking to get back there. We're hungry and we're ready to really just keep developing and keep focusing on the things that really matter, creating that diverse diverse offense, and obviously have the crazy defense length. I know Masai's basic principle on that is what you look for on an NBA court is space. You need space to do things, right? So get the guys that take away the most space and have all of them out there at the same time. And there's pretty much no space to do any offense, is what he's meaning in a sense of what the idea is behind getting all these lengthy guys and doing what we're doing, having them cover the court in a wider radius, tip balls, be able to recover balls, and promote this kind of like having more possessions than the other team always kind of mentality. And I think that will help crutch our poor shooting, but once we get better shooting and having that engaged, I don't wow, that's something. And we're working towards it. Salute real ones. Project Truth always. Logical Raptors. Fanatic out. Mike G. Mike G.